Taqueria Vallarta was just a student hangout, cheap and loud, with naive murals on the cinder block walls, and I felt vaguely let down. His choice of chow matched his taste in used cars, it seemed. As I was to find out in the weeks to come, he never went out of his way to wine and dine me, for his priorities lay elsewhere. Just once he took me to India Joe's, one other time to a fancy place in Capitola overlooking the harbour. I cannot think of its name. It had a parrot on the menu and on the little matchbooks. He always paid for me though, and that was kind. Ultimately, it was the conversation on the way down from campus and my disappointment in his lack of surprise and curiosity that made me bold enough to ask the question I had come to ask him. The noise helped too. "So tell me, why did you leave us like that?" I asked him once we had found a place to sit with the silver-wrapped cylinders that went for food in this joint. "Leave you?" He looked as if I was being brazen or had made a joke he did not get, but he was not upset by the question. "Yes," I said, "positively ditched Mom." Nonplussed, he started to eat in a slow, musing way, as if he was pondering the fine ingredients of the burrito more than the question at hand. He never talked with food in his mouth, more of his weird etiquette there, so stuffing his face gave him time to think. When he had finally gotten his bearings back and downloaded more of the fancy words, it turned out he thought that it was Mom who had done the leaving and the breaking up. I am sure he had a point, what with his planet travelling around a different sun. He had no idea of our life without him, the years and years my mom had refused to take up with any other man. I tried to tell him some of it, whatever I thought fit to tell, but I could tell his mind was straying. He kept up the meditative gourmet act, looking at the patrons coming and going with their brightly coloured plastic baskets while ruminating. "I got a bus to catch," I said impatiently when he turned and asked me what my plans were and where I was staying and did I want to stay with him. As if I stayed with him all the time, a daughter of separated parents. As if it had been weeks rather than years. Obviously, he was surer of himself now. "Why don't you head back tomorrow?" he said, getting up to toss the aluminum wrappings and put our baskets on the stack next to the trash can. "This ticket is only good today." "Oh, don't be absurd. I'm sure you can have that changed. Also, I can drive you. I've hardly seen you, Pumpkin." "Don't call me that." "You mean Pumpkin? How come? What did you want me to call you? Isn't Pumpkin a good name for a pumpkin?" He grabbed my hands before I could hit him, and so we walked out of the place, wrestling, looking like idiots, but in a way fitting right in. "You can call me anything you want," I said, when he opened the passenger door for me, and held it open for me, then shut it gently as if he was a chauffeur, and the little red car anything but a clunker. I leaned over and opened the door for him to signal that his old-world manners were not lost on me. He seemed to have forgotten how far away Grandma lived, nor had he thought about what to tell Mom when he met her face to face after 10 years or better. He was thinking about it now as we waited for the bus, then suggested he drop me down the street from the house to avoid being seen. So he was the one being absurd as we sat in this coffee place called Java House, out on the patio where you sit around these old wine barrels and little brick walls with planters and flowers in between the tables and birds teetering in the trees by the street. "The grackles are singing crazily," Nick said and nodded towards them. "The what? You mean the blackbirds? What did you call them?" He advised me they were grackles, not blackbirds, and you could tell them apart because the grackles sang crazily, like through a length of pipe, and because of their iridescent black plumage. I was almost impressed. "You're big on the big words, aren't you?" I winked at him and he smiled. He told me a good place to hunt for the big words was Webster's, and that one of his pastimes whenever grading or writing papers got too dull was to look up the definitions of animals and things. From memory he recited the one for toucan, which is any of various tropical birds of the genus so-and-so having brightly coloured plumage and a very large bill. He said he loved the fairy tale sound of that, and a very large bill. He quoted the llama, which is any of various South American ruminating mammals of the genus so-and-so, kept for its fleecy wool and as a beast of burden. He encouraged me to check the entry for the kangaroo rat, which includes the phrase, very strong hind legs adapted for jumping, and the definition of hurdy-gurdy. The definition of rare words like dotty or twerp. The weird sense of humour of a man of letters, this. But it was new to me and playful, and I liked it. The Java House is about a quarter mile from the Greyhound station. Still, I did not make my bus. I could not say exactly why. We just sat there until it was dark almost, and eventually he did a strange thing, reaching out silently and very gently stroking my cheek with the back of his right hand, like you would to comfort or encourage a child. It reminded me of other times, and so I let it go. I remembered the silly stuff he used to do for me, like putting Mom's black shades on the water kettle and a woolen hat over the handle and his hand on the handle and a t-shirt over the whole thing, making it look like a hoodlum with a silvery face and a spout for a mouth. You could open the lid of the spout from the handle, and reaching around a corner, he would work the lid in sync with a deep make-believe voice, scaring me where I lay on the couch watching Sesame Street or Animal Show at night or cartoons Sunday mornings on Mila's TV. I guess we missed your bus, didn't we? He said, withdrawing his hand. You did? It didn't seem to take a lot to keep you. Anyway, I'll drive you over to San Jose, and you'll still catch it. Do you want something for the road? A brownie or Snapples or something? You know Odwallers? They're really good. I shook my head. He would have to learn to talk to me a different way, I thought. Needless to say, he ended up driving me all the way back home, chasing the bus and conveniently missing it in San Jose, then in Modesto, and finally taking another route altogether when the bus went over towards Mariposa. It was nice driving with him, and seeing that his was a stick shift like Mom's, I asked him whether he would let me do the shifting. I told him it was a game I had been playing with Mom for years in her little emerald Colt, her saying, now, or just nodding and me shifting up or down while she stepped on the clutch, teaching me to drive by the pace of the clutch and by the way the motor sounded. Nick laughed and let me shift for him. Not while going down Highway 17, where he drove like a maniac, but later. By the green dashboard lights, I watched his left foot and reached over whenever it was time. And sometimes he forgot and reached out for the gear shift before or after I did, so that his hand brushed against my hand, and it never pulled back, nor did mine, so that sometimes we shifted together and laughed about it, until we reached the valley and Highway 4, where there was no reason to shift for miles and miles.